Governor Mike Dunleavy, it's great to be speaking with you again.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
There are two critical supply chains that I'm very, very concerned about when it comes to China. And this was kind of, exposed to the world through the Chinese Communist Party's treatment of the coronavirus pandemic, or at least exposed more visibly. One of them is pharmaceuticals, and there's some actions being taken to bring those supply chains home. But the other one is rare earth minerals. And in Alaska, you're actually taking some action to try to make this happen. Tell me more.
Well, Alaska has 30 of the identified 35 rare earths in the world. We have deposits here in Alaska. We also have strategic minerals and metals. We have probably the largest commercial graphite play right now in North America. So there's a lot that Alaska has to offer. And you're right. What the pandemic has really exposed is our vulnerability. I think to some extent, we as a country have fallen asleep at the helm over the last several decades. And that plus the concept of globalization has put us somewhat in a position of weakness. This pandemic has exposed that, as you said, not just with pharmaceuticals, but probably a number of different supply chains, and rare earths is one of them. And so from a strategic point of view, a defense point of view at the very least, let alone technological, medical, et cetera, I think what the president is doing is absolutely correct, and that is identifying the fact that we have these weaknesses. Senator Cruz and myself worked together on an op-ed because we believe in the same thing. He's got the ORS Act he's put forward in Congress in an effort to revitalize and bring attention to the fact that we are in a precarious situation, but that we can change that we can actually put ourselves in a much stronger position, which is going to bode well not just for the economies of places like Texas, Wyoming, the Dakotas, Nevada, and Alaska that have a lot of these rare earths, in California, but it's just good for America. It's good for America in a manner almost similar to what has happened with our energy. At one time, we were very dependent upon foreign actors. Today, we are a net exporter. This is good for the country. This is good for our security. This is good for our defense and our economy.
Most Americans, frankly, most of anybody around the world hasn't really heard much about these rare earth minerals until fairly recently. And how is it, you mentioned that America fell asleep at the wheel. How is it, given the critical importance of these minerals? First of all, where are they critically important? And secondly, how is it that America fell asleep at the wheel?
Well, they're critically important in a whole number of technological components and gadgets, from aerospace to rocket science and technology, missile technology, our computers, our phones, airlines. Basically, they underpin all of our modern world in many respects, the technological world. And so, it is under the radar, and most folks don't understand what actually goes into some of these electronics. But certainly a lot of these rare earths do. A lot of our strategic minerals do. How do we fall asleep at the helm? It's an aspect to some degree of globalization. It's cheaper at a moment in time to get a certain material or mineral or rare earth from another place on the planet other than America. And over time, what happens is those supplies, they grow and they keep supplying America's needs. The problem is, as we've talked earlier, what this pandemic shows is that if those supply lines are interrupted, either through a pandemic or through policy, foreign policy disagreements with those that are supplying the minerals or the rare earths, then you find yourself, it's only at that point you find yourself in a vulnerable situation. You wake up and you say, uh-oh, we got a problem here, because if we're having disagreements with country A or country B and they supply this particular material, for us to have the society, the civilization that we have, then we're beholden to them. And that becomes a problem. So the president really recognized this many years ago, that it's incumbent upon us to recognize where our vulnerabilities are and to bring those industries, that production, those supply chains home, so we don't have to be beholden to foreign actors when it comes to policy. And again, the pandemic has just exacerbated this situation and really made it clear, I think, for a lot of folks. You mentioned earlier pharmaceuticals, for example. It's not just pharmaceuticals; it's the rare earths, but it's other things too. It's certain food supplies, for example, to various parts of the world. It's military technology as well, going the other way from America to other places. But nonetheless, the point being, This is an issue that we now recognize, and Senator Cruz and others have recognized this, and we support what they're doing, and that is to bring these supply chains home so that we have the security that we need.
So, Governor, you mentioned that some of these rare earths are in plentiful supply in Alaska. What are you doing concretely to make this happen? And, as you mentioned in this op-ed, this isn't like a, overnight process.
Yeah, no, right, exactly. So we're getting the word out to investors. We're getting the word out to companies that would need these rare earths, that they're here in America, that if you invest in Alaska, you're investing in America. We say that Alaska is America and so much more, meaning in some respects, we have a very underdeveloped economy. We have little infrastructure. We're working on that. We have a program in which we're putting roads to resources so that we can access these minerals and these rare earths. But we're letting people know what we have here. And being America, we have American jurisprudence, we have American law, contract law, permitting processes, et cetera. So in Alaska, what we're telling people is we have the rare earths, we have the minerals. We are in North America. We have the regulations and the permitting process that I think is good for investors, but at the same time protects the environment. And so we continue to work on our regulations and our permitting process to make ourselves competitive. But we're also working on infrastructure to access these minerals. And so we are willing to partner with investors to make sure that we have that supply chain is established and then maintained, so we don't, again, find ourselves in a position that we found ourselves in here recently.
Well, of course, and in this OR Act, which Senator Cruz has put forth, the idea is that the Defense Department would also kind of guarantee some level of purchase of these items. I guess through the NDAA, there's also some provisions with respect to this, right?
Yes, correct. And when we talk about the whole chain, we're not just talking about, like currently, for example, we explore, we develop, we prepare the ore for export to be processed or smelted into a finished product. The idea under the ORS Act and initiatives such as that are ongoing is to make sure that the whole chain takes place here in America. The exploration, the development, the movement of the product, as well as the processing, the smelting, and turning it into the final product occurs here in America, so that no part of the chain is dependent upon foreign actors. So it's all done here. So,
Governor, a number of China experts have noted that the Chinese Communist Party basically heavily subsidizes some of these types of industries, like, for example, rare earths, which is so it can kind of corner the market, and actually uses that as not just a kind of economic leverage, but it's actually part of its sort of military approach, right? This asymmetrical warfare, as it's called, and so forth. We've also been hearing lately, there's a lot of concern about, business dealings of Hunter Biden in China and so forth. Again, another way that which China approaches this kind of concept of elite capture, another form of what you would call asymmetrical warfare. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on this.
Yeah, and I want to be clear. I think free and fair trade, this is another thing that the president has worked on, I think makes sense with China. It's over 1 billion people. They want a lot of our product as well. So free and fair trade makes a lot of sense. It's recognizing, as we've been talking about, it's recognizing what are those critical supply chains, what are those critical materials, minerals, products that we don't want to be dependent upon other countries, that we make sure that those things occur here. And, the Chinese are going to do what helps and works well for the Chinese. That's their job. That's their government's role. Our government's role is not necessarily to help them become stronger at our expense. Our role over here in America is to make sure that we remain strong, that we don't sacrifice our security and dependence upon others. Because once you do that, you aren't secure. Once you're dependent upon others, you are not secure. And so America has the ability across a whole host of supply chains, everything from food to the rare earths that we're talking about and beyond, that if we recognize that we secure those supply chains, it makes America stronger, but it also enables us in terms of foreign policy to be able to have discussions with foreign actors on a much, I don't want to say level playing field, but the advantage is not in their court. The advantage is for us to be able to have conversations about free and fair trade, how we deal with each other, how we deal with other countries. So it's a win-win, I think, across the board for the United States. It puts us in a position that we don't have to be beholden to others.
Governor Dunleavy, any final thoughts before we finish up?
America has everything it needs to continue to be strong, to continue to be powerful, create opportunity, create jobs, and create wealth. We just have to recognize that. This pandemic has helped us, I think, recognize where our vulnerabilities are. And it's really up to us. It's incumbent upon us to now make sure that we don't put ourselves in the position we have been in the past several decades, that we recognize that our role in large part is to make sure that we remain strong and we secure our nation. We can do that by making sure that in this particular case, what we're talking about on rare earths, that we do it here in America, from the exploration, the development, all the way through the processing and the final product. I think if we do that, it's going to be great for this country. It's going to be great for the world.
Governor Dunleavy, such a pleasure to speak with you again.
Thank you very much, and you guys have a great day.